I think my greatest asset is I've always seemed to have the knack of kind of being in the right place at the right time. And I did a lot of work with James Brown. I did most of his Japanese tours. He would be besieged with fans every night. All you would hear is, Ichiban so brother, Ichiban so brother. It's like I knew what Ichiban meant. So sitting on the plane with Mr. Brown, I said, you know what? We're starting a record label. Why don't I call the label Ichiban? Hey, Mr. Abbey, that's a good idea. Yeah, you do that. So we were Ichiban.
If you came through Atlanta and you was in a rapper or an entertainment industry between the 90s and 2000s, you could not have not worked with Ichiban in one capacity or another.
Ichiban Records was the largest independent record label in the United States at that time.
If you take Ichiban out the picture when you speak about the Atlanta music scene, it's like you take a piece of the slab of the house. Like, because if it weren't for Ichiban, the music scene that was existent wouldn't have been what it was.
So Ichiban Records started in 1985 by John, Abbey, and Nina Easton in their little home up in Marietta, right out of their garage.
There we are, sitting in my garage 2 miles from here. So when we started the label on our own, I got the graphic people to make everything look Japanese. People assumed, oh, they're Japanese, they must have money. Yeah, we'll work with them.
It was a good time. We're in the music entertainment industry, and so it was exciting. And you worked at a record label, and Ichiban was one of the premier labels of the time here.
Ichiban was at the forefront of being the artist's label, you know, and the artists, I think a lot of artists felt that.
And so to say that artists wanted to be a part of what we were doing is an understatement.
Anybody who wanted a record deal coming from my era, there was access to nothing else but Ichiban.
Ichiban was the label to go to here in Atlanta. From rock, pop, soul, rap, techno, alternative, and they had all that under one umbrella.
It was the stepping stone for a lot of artists who went on and became these national and multinational and international artists.
Being an independent label, you know, trying to keep up with the big boys, you know, the Aristas and, you know, Capitol Records and all of that, you know, we had to be very creative.
We were full service. So not only did we have our in-house radio promotions team, but we had marketing, we had an art department. We had everything that a major label could give you.
Our concept was that we would try to help you develop yourself as an artist, but also as a business person.
The marketing dollars would be a little smaller. And you know what? You had to do some of the work yourself.
Smurf is the best example of that because he went on, was tremendously successful.
So I always thought when like LaFace and Jermaine got his thing rolling, I always felt like that was cheating. Because I always looked at that like they got a bunch of money, they got budgets, they got all this. We had to go get it out the mud. And that's the most valuable part of my experience with Ichiban. It taught me how to get it out the mud. You had to get out here and work these records.
We had our fair share of really, really big songs and groups. There was a song, Hoot There It Is, and then Whoop There It Is, Tag Team versus 95 South. And they were both on the Arsenio Hall show.
We had one project called Dead Eye Dick. We got a soundtrack, one of the cuts on the Dumb and Dumber soundtrack, New Age Girl. And man, we were riding on top of the world then because we were like, yeah, you know, this little guy sticking to the big guy, you know, we're getting plenty of radio play, you know, we have it on a major film.
And then we had a lot of legendary people come through. You got a Millie Jackson walk through the door, Willie Clayton walk through the door, Clarence Carter will walk through the door.
You know, there were so many legends that came through Ichiban. I mean, Curtis Mayfield, my goodness. Superfly. You know, what can you say? It's Curtis Mayfield.
Biggest seller? Yeah. Stroking.
I be stroking. That's what I be
Clarence
doing.
was our flagship. Without Stroking, there'd be no Ichiban. Because it sold forever. There wasn't a day that went by that we didn't sell several boxes of it. Not a day.
Even though Ichiban was the largest independent record label, we were such a family. We were such a close-knit family.
Because we were having a good time doing what we were doing. The camaraderie and the family atmosphere there. I think there was a genuine element of love within the building. I think people genuinely felt that.
John Abbey, he was an innovator.
He was a visionary. He was ahead of his time.
He was not your typical label owner, I don't think. If you ever saw John, you would not realize that he owned that record label with Nina. He was so unassuming. I mean, the man wore shorts in the dead of winter.
He would come to the office dressed like he was still at the house. And to me, that I learned something from that. Because I remember all of us came up there driving our little Jeeps and stuff, thought we was doing something. And we didn't have nothing. The guy who was running the whole thing, you wouldn't even know who he was.
First of all, you couldn't do Ichiban today. The world wouldn't allow it, the majors wouldn't allow it. So from a timing point of view, I don't know how long Ichiban could have lasted.
If you ask the impact of Ichiban, you can't quantify it really. Because it sparked other stuff. You know, you might not have had the success that other labels who came after had, but it was a starting point for a lot of us.
And that's what made Ichiban so special. The fact that we took pride in not only in our relationships with the artists, with our labels, but with everybody in the entertainment business, whether it was retail, radio. Everybody was family to us.
And then I guess we got too big. And sometimes the mistake you make, you start to believe your own press release. You know what I mean?
I think John did a very, very good job of trying to keep it afloat and keep us together, but it just wasn't in the cards.
And you know, times were just changing, you know. They were just changing, and Ichiban just couldn't keep up.
You know, we just ran out of time. We were just closer to the end than I think any of us understood or even knew. So.
And just one day I just said, I can't do this no more. So we shut the building.
When Ichiban closed, it was, personally for me, it was very hard, and I know for a lot of my coworkers, you know, they took it very hard, and, you know, there'll never be another Ichiban.
For me, there was a grieving process because, you know, you just wake up and it's like, wow, what do I do now?
There's an old song, a R&B song called A Winner Never Quits, A Quitter Never Wins. I hope that all of the people that worked with us, I hope they reflect on it as a good period in their life and their career. I hope they look back with us and with me and they can smile and say, that was a good time.
Special K, sunshine.